For those of you who have never been at one of these,
So you don't want the spots.
just fasten your seatbelts. Because it's half entertainment and half serious questions. So we're just
But you don't know which is.
Yeah, you don't know which is. That's the problem. So we'll start with something serious. You know, we were talking this morning about how God creates the whole existence of the material universe by division, by duality, by light and dark. In the Bible it says, and God separated the light from the dark. And we actually saw a cartoon that illustrated that. And it's God at a laundromat putting the dark socks in one basket and the light socks in the next basket, saying, and God separated the light from the dark.
I'm just going to share a little story from my past. That's funny. Some of them are not funny. This one happens to be funny. This is for all my friends in the audience who are from ethnic backgrounds. And I was born in a Jewish family, and when I was in college I had a part-time job to earn extra money in a nursing home. This was in Madison, Wisconsin, and which is kind of a rural, not a real cosmopolitan city. And so this was a...
When you say not cosmopolitan, how can you say that when half the population wears these cheese?
Made my point. There were a lot of the little old people who were in this home were from even smaller towns. They were from rural Wisconsin, and some of them had never seen a Jewish person before. So the big night in the nursing home at that time was Thursday night, because that was Billy Graham. And so we'd wheel everybody into this big room and they'd watch Billy Graham on the television. And one night I was wheeling these two little old ladies in, and they said, "Oh, we're going to watch Billy Graham." And I said, "Oh, I didn't know." And they said, "What religion are you, honey?" And I was already on this path, but I knew that would be a bad choice to take. I said, "Well, my parents were Jewish," and they both stopped. If you can say Will's chair, stopped in the tracks. Stopped in the tracks, and they said, "Oh, Jewish. We had a Jewish family in our town, and they were nice and clean." Well, you know, some are, some aren't. That was kind of the past. So now, we have a few written questions, but the questions that we got were very, very serious. So we thought we'd kind of bypass those and see if you all had any questions, and then at the end we'll come back to the serious questions. Don't be embarrassed, Norma. I wasn't too bad. But no, we'll answer the questions, but we just wanted to open up for fun things. Or
Not just fun.
Not just
we
fun.
don't want it just light, because it's got to be a balance of light and dark.
Clean and yes.
I came back here after 16 years, and some of you have aged better than others.
I'll answer that because obviously Devi has gotten younger and more beautiful than she was 16.
His eyesight has gotten better.
aged as an actress, that they would put a kind of a filter on the camera so that you didn't have quite such clarity until finally it was just kind of a fuzzy white that came onto the screen toward the end.
We will answer your question, but speaking of Doris Day, no, this is serious. Several years ago, we took a little vacation in Carmel with Swamiji, and we stayed at this hotel in Carmel that is owned and run by Doris Day. And some years before that, we had watched a Doris Day movie with Swami, and Swami said, well, what do you think about Doris Day? And I said, well, I really appreciate her because I think single-handedly she started the hippie revolution. You know, because it was this sort of like uptight values and all that. And I remember when I was in college, everybody just went the other way from.
There's a question that was apparently asked of Doris Day. I'm not sure whether this is a kind of a, somebody reported it. Anyway, they asked what she was before she was a virgin.
So, anyway. So we were staying in this hotel that was run by Doris Day. And Swami knew that she was not my favorite person. There were posters of Doris Day everywhere and so forth. And every time we'd walk in the lobby with all the posters of Doris Day, Swami would announce really loudly, Devi doesn't like Doris Day. So while we were there, he bought me a biography of Doris Day. So anyway, getting back to your question, who remembers what it was? Okay.
Oh, we're supposed to repeat them. So
Oh yes, the question was, I have been gone for 16 years. And some of you have aged better than others, but he didn't really say which. So just, that was the question, yeah. Why? Well,
Water.
Dr. Peter, do you have any suggestions?
It's not the years, it's the mileage.
You all hear that? It's not the years, it's the mileage. In fact, Dr. Peter, who runs our local clinic, and there are about 5,000 or 6,000 patients that come there. He has found, not through rigorous study, but through observation, that the people from Ananda are about 10 years younger than their chronological age in terms of their health and other aspects. So you wouldn't really know that I'm 46.
We can take it one step further and say, why is that? You know, one thing I notice when I visit friends and relatives who are not spiritually focused, it's sort of what we were talking about this morning. They worry a lot.
Yeah.
They're very tense. They don't know how to deal with things. You know, Dr. Peter told us, or he has shared this joke at some of the programs that he gives. By the way, if you have not ever heard Dr. Peter give the talk Engineered for Divinity, it's brilliant. It is the most convincing talk on a kind of scientific level about why you should meditate. So it's available in all sorts of forms. But in any case, Dr. Peter, I forgot where I was going with this. Oh yes, the joke. Most people have, you know, they don't know how to cope with stress. And there was a joke that this man, that Dr. Peter shared, this man came to his doctor and said, Doctor, I'm so tense and everything in my life is falling apart and I'm depressed and I don't know what to do. And the doctor kind of slammed his hands on the desk and said, why don't you drink the way I do? So, anyway, it's coping mechanisms. It's how to deal with what life throws at you, and to be able to laugh at it and to move forward. And another story, a personal story about dealing with stress. We have one son, he's a grown son, and he has children of his own. And when he was born here at Ananda, born in our house that burned up in the fire 11 days later. But so it's been an interesting life. But as we realized that the baby was going to be born, I said to Jyotish, you know, I'm a little scared. It was our first child. We don't know what's going to happen. And Jyotish said, oh, Devi, don't be scared. He said, you've had so many babies in all of your incarnations. He said, you've had enough babies to populate Sacramento. And I knew we were, you know, about to go on this grand adventure, and I said, Sacramento? All those people going to Radio Shack and Taco Bell? I don't want to be the mother of Sacramento. He said, okay, Benari.
So I don't highly recommend that as husbanding skills. Take everything with a little discrimination. So, next question. We've shut him down.
Judy. Jill.
Jill.
I wanted to ask you a question tonight to have you repeat what you said this morning. There were about 3 things about, it was calling in God, or, and I wanted to write them down, but I forgot my paper and pencil. So, but maybe if someone else would write them.
The first one was memory. No.
Well, I'm not quite sure.
I think it was something about thought, will, and...
Yeah.
Oh, this is Master's Prayer.
Yeah.
It's, I will think. Somebody write this down for her because she's still forgotten from paper and pencil. I will think, I will, I will act, but guide thou my thought, will, and activity to the right path in everything. And it's also in whispers from eternity and metaphysical meditations. But it's a very, very beautiful prayer. And one of the things to keep repeating over and over, because that sense of attuning thought, will, and activity to God in everything we do is a very, very important step.
I'd be interested to just know more about the recent filming of the movie.
Christy asks if we could share a little bit more about the recent filming of the movie.
Well, it was a tremendous adventure. For those of you who may not know what the subject is about, we are in the process of doing several movies, but one is much farther along than the others. The other 2 are in script or script rewrite stage. But one of the movies is about 3/4 filmed. And so a year and a half ago in Los Angeles at Baravi's house, our dear friend Baravi, the director of the movie came and did a lot of interviews, and he's done a lot of research, wonderful man, Ted Nicola. And at any rate, from that has built up the momentum to actually get started in this movie. And it's basically a movie about the reason to have communities and the need for them. And so the plot is that there is a reporter who, as it turned out, we've changed it a little bit, but the reporter is searching on the internet, and she is looking for solutions to some of the current economic problems, some of the current political problems, and trying to find some positive solutions. And she comes across a short video about Ananda. She's a reporter for a magazine, fictional, this is all in the plot, a magazine called Insights, Profiles. And so she talks her boss into paying for her to come and interview people at Ananda in order to find out the secret of how we have such a positive community. We have a very beautiful actress who plays that primary role. Her name is Elizabeth Rohm, R-O-H-M, and she's a very fine actor. She had a starring role on the Law and Order series that many people have heard of. Devi and I and many others at Ananda don't watch television, and so we don't see these things live, but you know, you hear the names. But more than that, she has a very deep spiritual interest. She came up with parents who meditate, and I'm going to tell a very touching story. Now, I don't think she would mind. Do you think,
I don't know.
Elizabeth, about how she got the job? No, I think
We
she.
don't mind.
No, you don't. And I don't think she would mind. She came up. Her mother, especially, was a long-term meditator. Studied TM and traveled with Maharishi, and then sometime later, after Maharishi's either passing or his receding from public work, she became a disciple of Muktananda. And so then, during the time that Elizabeth was growing up, they would go every summer and spend the summer at the ashram with Muktananda. And later with the successor Guru Mai that took over after Muktananda left, passed away. At any rate, so she had this early interest and very serious interest. But then she went to college and got into an acting career and was very, very successful in it. But
Just to interject, when she was 16, Guru and I asked her to move to India to become essentially a Swami as a young girl, and it was too much for her, so she backed away from it and went to high school and college.
so even though she had a very successful acting career, still has a very successful acting career, she had a deep longing and resonance with the spiritual life. And her mother was not only her mother, but in many ways, like Master's mother, was her spiritual guide. But her mother passed away about 2 years ago. And from that time on, she's been a little bit adrift in her spiritual searching. And so she was, caught between this successful career and this spiritual hunger. And so she started praying that God show her own authentic spiritual path. Within about a week of her starting that prayer, she got a call from an agent who said, I remember meeting you some years ago and you were a Buddhist or something. In Hollywood, a Buddhist or something means that you have some spiritual interest. And he said, I've got this kind of oddball project that you might be interested in. It's something about community and something about somebody named Yogananda and Kriyananda. And Elizabeth said, do you know who those people are? And the agent said, no, not really. She said, well, I do. Tell me about the project. And when she heard about it, she was absolutely just moved to tears. The first meeting that we had in Los Angeles with her, where she connected with Swami and a few others of us, was very, very touching, because it was like a lotus blossom that had been in a desert with barely surviving, and all of a sudden it was put back in the water, and she was just beginning to blossom. So she's the actress, the primary actress.
And at that meeting with Swamiji in LA at Barbie's house, she said to Swami, you know, this isn't just a movie for me. She said, I know this will be my spiritual transformation that I've been waiting for. And she said it was such, I mean, she's very beautiful, very well poised and groomed and all that, but her eyes are filled with sadness because she left something that she's still yearning for. And so her time here was very, very significant. And she asked Swamiji for a spiritual name. He gave her the name Ishwari, which is the kind of feminine aspect of God, is light. And then she also has a beautiful 6-year-old daughter, four-year-old daughter who is with her. And this little girl was so amazing. She was so loving and so open-hearted. And she would just run up to everyone and hug them. And Ishwari kept saying, is this okay? Is this okay? And then finally, she came the next morning. We were, I hate to say this, but it's the truth. We were doing a scene with her. Anyway, and she said, you know, I tried to talk with Easton, that was her little daughter, is her little daughter, saying, you know, maybe you should try not to show so much love, you know, because people don't know how to take it, and if you're going up and hugging and kissing everyone.
You should respect other people's limits.
And little Easton looked at her and said, not here, Mommy. Here I can show as much love as I want. And Ishwari just kind of said, oh my God, you know, she's right, she's right. So
back to the movie. So there was a crew of about 20 people, and then a big Ananda support group. And we filmed pretty much from 7:30 in the morning until dark at night, 7:30 at night, for about 10 days. Very, very intensive schedule. There were something like 85 or 90 scenes in the movie, and each scene sometimes has to be filmed and refilmed, different takes, 8 or 10 times, because they do different camera angles. You know, for instance, Devi and I, when we were, the first scene that we had with her, we were up by Rajasi Ridge, and they wanted to watch us. They call it in the movie industry, as we experienced actors say, in the industry we call it a reveal. And what that means is that we were walking up the hill so that you didn't see us until you saw first
through high grass.
Yeah, so we would walk up the hill through high grass, and then at a certain point, you know, the director would say, okay, action, dialogue, all of that. And then she would ask us a question, and we would answer it. In that case, it was, you know, how large is Ananda? It's beautiful, and so we'd answer that, and questions like that. But that scene, we probably shot 5 or 6 times, because they had 2 cameras, very, very high definition, best high definition cameras you can get. 2 cameras shooting, but you want the whole scene, you want a broad scene, you want just the 3 of us, you want shots on the person asking the question, in this case Elizabeth, whose name in the movie is Juliet. You want a shot, tight shot, Ishwari. And you want a tight shot on the person answering, and so on. So we would walk up and down the hill you know, several times, and so each scene might take 3 or 4 hours to shoot, and it's going to end up being 2 or 3 or 4 minutes in the movie. But it was a beautiful experience. Devi, one of the crew also was highly affected by the beauty of the place, but most of all by the people and the support and the kindness of the people. And these are very, very top quality filmmakers. the director of photography, would get up before dawn every morning and be out with his camera as the first rays of light were coming, and he would be shooting certain aspects.
And he commented to us, he was an Australian man who's worked all over the world, worked in, did films in Bollywood and so forth in Mumbai. But he said, I go out and I try, he was very, the working title of the movie is Cities of Light. I don't think that's what it's going to stay with. Another alternative is simply expanding light. But light is a theme. They really were so struck by the light here. And he said, you know, when I go out in the early morning and there's statues of, you know, Shiva and the different masters all over, Krishna, he said, you know, in the early morning, I don't know if you all did this consciously, but everyone is illuminated with light. And I said, no, we didn't do it consciously, but that's interesting. But it was also, we had to surrender to be frank, to the artificiality of it all. So when they said, okay, we want you walking on Rajasi Ridge, and we said, okay, well, here's the path. And he said, no, you can't walk through the path. You have to walk through the high grass. And we said, but...
And be sure to circle around, because we want the grass
not to be trampled. So every time, and we had to do this about 5 or 6 times, and so every time we got to the top of the hill, we would be totally covered with thistles and burrs. But then this wonderful thing happens. They say, wardrobe! And somebody comes running up and they pull off the thistles. And then they say, makeup! And they comb your hair. And I said, gosh, I've been needing you girls my whole life. So it was sort of, you got used to saying, wardrobe! Makeup!
She says that to me in the morning.
Also, when they do the makeup, they airbrush it on, which was amazing. But Jyotish told me not to share this story tonight. I think he was wrong. So there were these 2 wonderful men who were the set designers, and they were good. They would go and they would transform. For those of you who have gone over, who have been here before and are going now to the Hermitage, the way the altar is rearranged, they did that, and it's a much better arrangement. And anyway, so they when there was something that set, and that would like there would be a pipe standing out, so they go set, and then you have to go pull the pipe out. So we were supposed to be filming this scene and by the fountain at Rajasi Park, but a dog had passed in before we got there, and we couldn't stand where we were planning to stand. And so the director,
some degree of danger.
So the director calls out, "Set!" And these 2 high-end Hollywood guys come out with 2 paper cups, and they fix the set for us.
So back to the movie. So we were able to shoot about 3/4 or 80% of the scenes. There will be a few more scenes shot in late September, early October. And those who have seen what's called the dailies, which are the unedited production of the day, say that visually it is absolutely stunning. And what it is in terms of scripting, Shivani especially and Asha have worked very, very hard, and we've gone through lots and lots of what we would like to present from Ananda. And so in each scene, instead of writing a script and having the actors memorize that and repeat it, which
we were incapable.
Yeah, which when they started doing screen tests, they found that we couldn't do. So with any acting conviction, but what we could do is talk about our life here. So the scene will have Juliet asking a question or 2 or 3, depending on what it is, and then whoever's answering has certain talking points, and then they just talk from their heart about those points. And so it's a very nice combination of kind of spontaneity and visual beauty and a nice plot. So she interviews a lot of people here, and then she, as a kind of a subplot, she has an aunt and a brother and sister-in-law. The brother and sister-in-law have lost their house to foreclosure. The aunt has lost her job, and both of them are struggling to make it. So they've moved in together. And so interspersed in there, she has conversations with them, and she has conversations with her boss, who's a little bit skeptical about this whole thing. And at any rate, toward the end of the movie, she decides that what she wants to do is start a community in upstate New York with her family and some others that she knows. So it's a very, very nice plot to the movie.
And one of the her last scene with Swami is she comes to him before she's leaving Ananda, and she asks him for his blessings for her to try to start a community of her own. And so, she kneels down and he blesses her. And they had to do that scene over about 10 or 12 times. And she said, wow, this is wonderful. But it really was an amazing collaboration between the people of Ananda and this professional film crew. And, the community here had to just totally surrender to the process. The roads were blocked off. Some you couldn't drive different places, and anyway, it was you couldn't go here, you couldn't go there because they were filming. But people were totally cooperative with it, and they filmed in different people's houses, and all the furniture had to be moved out of those houses, and the set guys would come in and rearrange it according to what was needed. But the more time went on, the more the film crew, not just Ishwari, the main actress, but they all really began changing. And one man is interested in buying one of the pieces of land across the road that we were talking about. And Swami gave them all an autographed copy of the new biography of Master, which they wanted. And someone kind of jokingly asked, well, you all have Ananda names. Can we have names like that? And so Shivani and Asha spent a lot of time going through all the characters of the Mahabharata. And they gave there were maybe 25 crew members, and each one got a name. What they'll do with it, I don't know.
So we, at this rate, have time for one more question.
We don't have that kind of money here.
No, we don't have that kind of money. Frank is asking how the heck we pay for something. Shivani and Santoshi especially have been working with people. We have quite a number of people who are investors. The movie itself will cost maybe $1.5 million, something like that. And so they've been working with investors, people who have more means, and if the movie can earn back that, the investors will earn back all of it. Otherwise, they're interested in seeing this word get out, and they're able to help in this way. So, like everything else at Ananda, it is the effort of a combined group of people who believe in what we're doing and are attuned to Master and Swamiji and want to see things happen.
But you're right, the first part of your question was absolutely right. We don't have that kind of money.
Thoughts about what the market will be, where this movie will be going to?
Well, the producer of it sees it kind of the same niche as The Secret or What the Bleep Do We Know, which were both very successful, profitable movies. It's not limited release, but nevertheless, both of those movies made money. And he said,
Also, just as a footnote, the production value of our movie is far better than either of those.
yeah, the producer Roberto Bessi said those movies were not good quality, film technically and so forth, but this one really is. So Roberto is a wonderful Italian film producer and professor of cinematography in Italy, and has received many awards for his films there, and for many of his students have received awards. And so it's he just thinks, he said, this will find its audience. There's also a contact we made through Baravi in LA of a man named John Ratz, who started a foundation called something, Gates, yes, Global Alliance for Transformational Entertainment, right? And he was the one who, he has a distribution network through like Unity churches and sort of new thought groups, and he was the one who distributed What the Bleep Do We Know and made it a success. So we realize that that's the pivotal question. How do you get this thing out, no matter how beautiful it is? So that's
he will be helping us. Roberto Bessi, who has a lot of contacts, will be helping, and we hope all of you will be helping. But this Gates Foundation, when John Ratz had the idea of it, he contacted a few of his friends in Hollywood, in the movie industry, and he wanted to put together an event where actors and producers and directors and so on could come to talk about the idea of this global alliance for transformative entertainment. And he expected maybe 50 or 100 people would come. When the event happened, there were 600 or 700 people that came. And so there's
a big name.
Yeah, Jim Carrey, for instance, is on the board of directors of this. And so there's a big and sincere interest among, Hollywood is one of the centers of creative energy on the planet. And so there are a lot of people who are not only highly creative, but want to see that what they do help the planet somehow. And so we're working with those kinds of networks, and we'll just see.
With anything that goes, spreads into the public domain, becomes popular, famous, there's going to be criticisms coming from all directions too, from skeptics and materialists, and down to. Have you, as Ananda, thought about possible criticisms and answers to those?
Well, let me ask this group here who's been around Ananda, have we ever been criticized? We have quite a bit of experience with that and feel we can handle it.
I have two related questions for you. Are you both male card-carrying members of the Screen Actors Guild? And have you been working on your separate speeches?
Well, just to say, Roberto.
What was the question?
Oh, the question was, are you now card-carrying members of the Screen Actors Guild, and are we ready for our acceptance speeches? Well, mainly you just thank everyone you ever knew. That's as far as I can tell for acceptance speeches. But, God, right. But Roberto, who's, every culture has its own beauty. And one thing you love about the Italian people is there's no limits. Anything's possible. So he said, he has a beautiful Italian accent. He said, I have a friend who is on the selection committee for the Venice Film Festival. I think we can get in. So we're planning our blue tuxedos. And
But I have to say, this is not with a lot of modesty, I admit, but that this is not my first acting. Our dear friend to the LA Auto Show a couple of years ago, and so there were all these people in blue walking around, and Devi will tell you a little scene from that in a moment, but one of the things they had there was the pyramid of cupcakes. Cupcakes were big things, and I mean, we didn't know it, but there's a whole food industry around cupcakes, so the pyramid of cupcakes. And the Food Channel was filming at the LA Auto Show people taking a cupcake and eating it and commenting on it. And so all of the ladies, of course, went straight on up, signed the waiver form, and got their cupcake and gave their little talk about it. And I was hiding in the back. But then they said, "You've got to do it, you've got to do it." And I figured, well, why not? I get a free cupcake. So I went up, got my free cupcake, said my little thing, and then forgot about it. But then about 3 or 4 months later, Jyotish, a member, was on the East Coast and visiting in her sister's house. And her sister had the Food Channel on. And all of a sudden she heard my voice. So she ran in, and there I was, with chocolate smeared on, saying my great line, "Now that's a cupcake." And I just assumed that the offers were going to start pouring different things, but somehow it hasn't happened. Not with my second film, I think.
The scene at the LA Auto Show, Barbie helps run the show, and so she got us all in on, what's the night? Preview night, which is, you know, it's really, if you're ever in Los Angeles during the LA Auto Show, it's well worth going to. It's like it's in the LA Convention Center, and it's every car that you ever knew existed or will ever exist in the world is there. I mean, the cars that James Bond drove, you know, are literally there, and every old and new model. And so, but Barbie wanted us to wear our blue nice Swami clothes. So there, and Swami was there with us. Jyotish was pushing him out in his wheelchair. Then he said, "Oh, let's get in that car," so we help him out of his wheelchair. And some lady came up to me, and she was a LA lady, and she said, "So what's with the blue?" It's a renunciate order. And she looked at me and she goes, "Oh, are you a guru?" I said, "No, I'm not a guru, but I'm a Swami." And she said, "Well, what's the difference?" And I said, "Well, a guru is someone who has realized God, and a Swami is someone who's aspiring to know God." And she looked real thoughtful for a moment. And then she looked at me. We were standing near Jyotish's filming debut, and she said, "You want a cupcake?"
Okay, normal. So we promised, we promised him we would answer it. So Swami Kriyananda has stated that for every up in this realm of relativity, there is a down. In other words, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. If this is the case, is there any point in trying to be happy all the time? By that logic, should we not be in a continuous state of I don't have.
You have glasses.
Yeah, I don't have glasses. Dispassion and indifference.
Parentheses.
Parentheses.
That's why Arjuna gave the Bhagavad Gita for people like you.
Right.
I mean,
Krishna. So, one could take it that way, but I don't know of any of the masters who have taught that we shouldn't try to be happy. In fact, Master says that we should try to be happy all the time, and we should affirm happiness in all circumstances. And so even the attempt, knowing that things are moving up and down, even the attempt to be happy and the attempt to affirm happiness works in a neutralizing way, not on outer circumstances, but on our own vrittis and our own tendencies which cause those things. The other thing is that we don't know how much bad karma we've paid off in a past life, so maybe we can have a very happy life, this life. In the end, honestly, by the time you get quite a ways along the spiritual path, that is not a burning issue, whether you're happy or not. The burning issue is whether you're in tune with God and let come what will. And that, in turn, produces a deeper happiness or produces bliss. But yes, there's a balancing out, but I once had this thought, taking this in a kind of a mathematical way, where for every up there's a down. What about, for instance, a tennis player, the top tennis player in the world, Roger Federer? He's won tens of thousands of games of tennis and lost only a fraction of that. So that doesn't balance out. He hasn't lost as many as he's won. So if you confine it to Roger Federer, that's true. But if you don't confine it to Roger Federer and you say Roger Federer and whoever he's played, it's exactly equal. As many games have been won as have been lost. And so this sense of up and down and pleasure and pain is broader than just the personality and just the ego. It involves the journey of the soul, which can be many, many lifetimes. And so in this one lifetime, it's not enough of a sample to say that you can't be abnormally happy in this lifetime without balancing it out. But ultimately, what you really want to do is quell the desire for outward happiness and replace it, as we were saying this morning, with bliss, which is innate to the soul.
A couple of things to add too. I believe Swami said in his talk on Monday that it's not that you can't have anything, you just can't be attached to it. Master, yes, because he told the story about Master going to Radio City Music Hall, a big auditorium, very ornate in New York, and he just bought a ticket, walked around, totally enjoyed it, and then at the end of his time of enjoying this beautiful building, he walked out, and he was happy. So most people get attached to things. Swami said once he was having tea at the home of some wealthy diplomat, and the tea was served on this exquisite set of chinaware, and the man who he was visiting was kind of yelling at the servants, "Be careful, don't drop that, don't drop that." And Swami said, I was totally enjoying this beautiful set of china, and he wasn't enjoying it for a minute. And so it's the attachment that causes the problem. And then also you said something about passionate indifference, parentheses, bliss. Well, indifference, that's thinking and they're picking it up from the wrong string. There's a wonderful saying, a sad saint is a sad saint indeed. So, and another one of my favorite sayings is, joy is the ineffable evidence of the presence of God. So people who really are have a deep spiritual life, maybe they're quiet, maybe they're reclusive, but there's a bubbling up of joy. The other day we were at Swamiji's, and he's got a very subtle, delightful sense of humor. And he was saying, and sometimes it's so subtle that you have to just look at the expression on his face to get what's going on. And he said, oh, I wanted some grapes. And they went in the kitchen and there weren't any grapes. And so I said, oh, Swami, there's grapes down at the market, Master's Market. And he said, oh, how are they? And I said, very good. And then he paused and he said, there's so many ways you can say those words, very good. You can say, very good. You can say, very good. Or you can say, very good, which means you don't really know. And I said, well, Swami, I don't really know. I saw there were grapes there. I don't know how to do that. But it just was such a delightful, I mean, why go through all that except just really enjoy it? And so it's dispassionate indifference. I mean, who would want that? But total embracing of a life of joy and freedom and not attachment and facing whatever challenges come to you with strength and joy, that's worth living for. So that's the goal.
Master had a delightful sense of humor, and many of you have heard this, but Swami tells it. Master told a joke about an Irishman, a Scotsman, and an Englishman who were drinking whiskey, and a fly flew into each of the glasses, and the Irishman kind of sloshed the glass and the fly got out and half the whiskey. He didn't care. The Englishman took the glass and he flicked the fly out. And then Master said, and the Scotsman squeezed the fly. And Swami said, and when Master told that, the laughter and the humor and the love of the enjoyment of saying, and he squeezed the fly. So, yeah, a sad saint is a sad saint indeed.
There's another joke from Master about the miserly tendency of the Scotch people. He said, and you know the story about the 3 Scotsmen that were in church and they passed the collection basket and one of them fainted and the other 2 carried him out.
Swami too has a delightful sense of humor. When we were in India with him in January, somebody had given him, or he bought in a bookstore, a joke book, and he was reading them and laughing and laughing. And Devi will tell one and I'll tell another, but the one I will tell is that this fellow says to his friend, you know, I've been seeing spots before in front of my eyes. The friend said, spots in front of your eyes? He said, yeah, for a couple of weeks, these spots in front of my eyes. He said, well, have you seen a doctor? He said, no, just the spots.
One more. So then the other joke that he would, every morning he would read us these same 2 jokes. And he would laugh and laugh. This man goes to a doctor and he said, doctor, I keep having this weird sensation that I'm a cat. He said, a cat? How long has this been going on? And the man said, since I was a kitten.
Okay, I don't know where we go. Okay. What is the nature of the universe? Well, the nature of the universe is joy trying to express itself. There's a statement generally given for why did God create the universe, and the answer often given is it's God's play. He enjoys himself through many. But Swami has a very interesting answer for that. And he said, it is the nature of joy. Remember, God is Satchidananda, God is joy. It is the nature of joy itself to want to share itself and expand. And so that sense of joy expanding propels it to create a universe. It's also an expression of love. And there's a beautiful story of George Washington Carver. And he would walk in the mornings out in nature.
You all know who George Washington Carver is?
George Washington Carver, some of you may not know. He was a black scientist who was a botanist in, after the Civil War, so the 1880s, 90s in there, and was just breaking through some very heavy racial barriers.
Born into slavery.
Born into slavery, and then worked his way out of that. Brilliant man, and was responsible for a lot of new plants. And so he said that if you love it enough, everything in nature will talk to you. And he would have morning walks where he would talk to God and talk to the plants during these walks. And he told the story that one time he was walking and he said, God, why did you create the universe? And he heard this voice say, George, that's an awfully big question. It's too big for you. And he said, well, God, why did you create me? Well, George, that's better, but it's still a little too big for you. And then he said, well, God, why did you create the peanut? He said, now, George, there's one you can work on. And so he worked on uses for the peanut. And he transformed the whole economy of the South through growing. He found out that the peanut would help replace nutrients in the soil that had been depleted by tobacco plants, and so cotton, and that the peanut gave a wonderful oil that was useful, and he created dozens, perhaps hundreds of products from the peanut and peanut oil, and was responsible for millions and millions of dollars and acres planted in the South with this. Very humble man. He would go and present his findings at universities or prestigious clubs, and he'd have to go around back to the servants' entrance because they wouldn't let him, as a black man, wouldn't let him in the front door. So he'd go around to the back and then go in and present his findings and give these brilliant lectures and then go out the back door again. But beautiful. But his answer was, everything in the universe will talk to you if you love it enough, including God.
Okay, well, maybe we'll end with that.
Yeah.
So thank you all for coming, and we just hope you have a wonderful rest of your spiritual renewal week, and we will see you in the days ahead.